Hi, welcome to Barb's Book Spot. I've chosen some books to share with you today that are informational texts. I think it's important to make sure we read some fiction and some nonfiction with children, and I think it's important also to unlock those informational texts for them to point out maybe the structure, the organization as we go along. The ones I've chosen today were all published in 2014, and they use a compare-contrast method of organizing the information. So we'll see some traits about things, animals, eyes, that are the same for many, and then others that are different, that have evolved differently or that the animal has adapted differently. The first book I'd like to share with you is called Born in the Wild, Baby Mammals and Their Parents, and it's written and illustrated by Lita Judge. It was published by Brook Press. This book features characteristics of mammals, so if you have a science unit that you're getting ready to teach about that, this would be a great way to start out. It talks about our needs for food, shelter, play, a need for a family or some caressing and loving, all of these things that humans, mammals, share with humans. So let's see how they organize the text in this book. We start out each concept with a full page spread. We see a mother or a parent animal and some babies, and the need is written in a font on one of the pages. This one says the baby is hungry. Here's another example. The baby needs protection. And here's another example. The baby needs shelter. And each animal is shown in their shelter or getting that protection or in the care of a parent. And then on the next page, following the need, we learn about how that need shows up in various animals. Let me read just a little so you can get the idea. Animals need to be protected from rain, wind, and snow, and shaded from sun. So here we see three different animals. We see some western harvest mice in their nest. We see a badger family in their burrow, and we see a litter of raccoons in their hollow tree. Notice that the name of the animal is in a larger font, and it's in a different color so it stands out. And also notice that they use the correct collective noun to describe. So we have a litter of raccoons, or we have kits. It might use the name of the cub or the burrow. So we're learning some vocabulary as we go along the way. All the needs they go through. We see baby animals and parents. The babies grow strong through play. And we learn a little bit about why those things are important to animals. For example, with play, animals are learning skills that they'll need later for survival. So roughhousing and playing on top of a mountain when they're still young goats might become a skill that they'll use for fighting, for dominance later. Or maybe pouncing and playing and chasing butterflies for a lion cub will become the same skills that that baby will need when it grows up to hunt and find its food. So the text is sharing those kind of details. This book has lovely back matter. There's quite an extensive dictionary at the end. Each animal is pictured, and then we learn more facts about that animal. This goes on for a couple of pages, so they're all in there. There's a glossary of terms, sources for the book, and a list of websites for more information should the student want to go on and learn more about any one of these animals. And I'd like to show you my favorite page. The one thing that they show at the very end is that all baby animals are alike, just like us. So they bring it back around to show that humans are mammals too. And let me read. Kids, joeys, cubs, and colts, every baby mammal needs gentle care and teaching, just like you. So I think this is a wonderful book to share with the younger set to learn a little bit about mammals and basic needs. We also can point out that compare-contrast as we read along and sort of unlock the text for students as we share. The next book I'd like to share, one of my favorite authors, Steve Jenkins. He's written and illustrated this book called Eye to Eye, How Animals See the World. And I want to just point out some details on the jacket before we go on. And I think that's what I like best about Steve Jenkins' work is the details he put in. This book was published in 2014 by Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. He's got an array of different animal eyes on the front, and we have to guess, wonder what animal that might be. And then on the back, we do see the animals that are presented in this book. Now, we don't know which eye belongs to which animal. I don't think there's necessarily a one-to-one correspondence, but it kind of piques our curiosity. And there are a couple of fun facts. My favorite fact from the back says, the tuatara, a kind of lizard, has a third eye on the top of its head. So I'm going to try to find that animal when I start to read the book. The other thing I like about this, and I love end papers, I like to look at the end papers and the jacket covers. I like to peek behind the dust cover and see if the cover's different back there. This one's the same. But look at this. This book is about eyes, and look at the flyleaf here. The introduction to the book is arranged like an eye chart. And I thought that was just a nice little fun detail, and I wonder if kids will pick up on that. You may or may not point that out. That might be just something they'd like to see. Again, in the back, the information about the author is set up like an eye chart. So this book is really all about eyes. It's a compare-contrast arrangement. He starts out by giving us a little bit of the history of the development of eyes in animals and why sight is important. Animals need to see in order to hunt. They need to see to protect themselves. They need to see to find their way to whatever habitat they're going to. And then he talks a little bit about the evolution of eyes and the kinds of categories that eyes fall into. They start out with very basic, simple eye spots, which do little more than maybe notice a difference in light, a change in light they'll respond to. There are pinhole eyes, which are a little bit better than eye spots, but not a whole lot. They might be able to see some shapes, but maybe not a detailed recognition of what they're seeing. We have compound eyes, and then we also have camera eyes. And he posits that all eyes fall roughly into one of these categories. So that's our setup for the book. Now we're going to learn about some various animals. He starts out with two creatures that have relatively simple eyes, a sea slug and a snail. The sea slug has eyes that are just eye spots, and they really only recognize light or dark, so it might hide from the light. As soon as it sees light, it might go hide under a rock or something like that, or behind a piece of seaweed. We see a picture of the animal up here, so we know what animal we're talking about, and then the larger image will focus in on where the eye is or what the eye looks like for that creature. The snail's eyes are interesting. They're really not a whole lot better than the eye spots, but they're on the end of these long antennas, so the snail can just stick out an antenna, kind of peek to see if it looks clear out there. If there's any shadows, it can withdraw and protect itself inside its shell. So the eye spot's sort of gone one better. It's adapted a little bit for that creature. And all throughout, the text talks about the adaptations, how the eye starts out a certain way, but maybe over time, the animal has adapted or the eye has evolved in order to better suit that animal's needs. Let's take a look at another one. The biggest eye belongs to a sea squid, and I like the way big is big, right? So he used the whole double page spread to show us this very large eye for this creature. There's some really unusual, interesting creatures in here. I like this one too. Did you know that the halibut starts out with eyes, one on each side of its head? And then as it matures, it has a habit of kind of hovering near the bottom of the ocean bottom. It sits right down near the sand, and over time, little by little, one eye migrates over to the top so that, and by the end of its life, both eyes are on the top. So both eyes are on the same side of its head. And I think that's really interesting. But because the halibut hovers so close near the bottom, it's never afraid of danger from below, and it doesn't look for food below, it looks above. So its need is to have both eyes looking up at all times. This is interesting too. The panther chameleon can move its eyes independently, and so one can be looking up while the other's looking down. It can be searching for prey, quick insects and things. At the same time, it's watching out for something that might want to eat it. And so it's very highly adapted for its needs, and its eyes have come right along with it. This book has lovely back matter, and I think your older students would find a lot to learn here. We get some basic steps of evolution of the eye, and as the eye has evolved, a description of what that is, and then a sample of a creature that has an eye that he's being talked about right here. There's a huge dictionary, sort of like an encyclopedia of all the creatures that we've met in the book. And what I like about these details, we get the length or the size of the animal in inches, and then we also get it in metric, in centimeters or meters. We get the diet, we get the habitat where you might find this creature, and a little picture to help us orient ourselves and go back to the page in the book where we can learn more about the eye. Okay? And then on the final page we have a glossary. And that's that. A lovely book by Steve Jenkins. This last book is more fun than anything else. And actually there are a couple books in this series. I'll show you another one as well. But the story is called Secrets of the Seashore, a Shine-a-Light book. And it's written by Carron Brown and Alyssa Nassner. And Alyssa Nassner did the illustrations. And it's published by Kane Miller Books. I think this one's great for the younger crowd, but I can see kids of all ages poring over this book on their own. I think I'd like to read it aloud, and I think it works well that way. But I think they're the one, this is the one they're going to come to look for when you're done reading it aloud, so that they can play with it themselves. All right, I think the easiest way to show you how this works is to just start right out reading it. We have lovely watery blue end papers to kind of give us the idea that we're talking about the water. We're talking about a tide pool habitat. It'd be great to kick off a unit on habitats. Let me just read for you. A tide pool is bustling with life. If you look closely between the rocks, between the fronds of seaweed and on the sandy bed, you will see the animals living there. Now, I'm not seeing too many animals right off the bat. A few, but not too many. Shine a flashlight behind the page or hold it up to the light to reveal what is hidden in and around the pool. Discover a small world of great surprises. So here we have a description. A tide pool is a hollow on the seashore. Can you see what happens when the tide comes in? All right, I'm going to turn a light on back here to show you what happens when the tide comes in. Okay, so watch this area right here in the tide pool. Can you see the critters in there? I think kids will love that. Let me show you the back of the page. The back of every page is in black and white. The highlighted creatures are in the white part, and then we have just a little bit of text back here to give us more information about the identification of that creature or something that it does. This one says, whoosh, the seawater flows in with the tide and fills the tide pool. So we see an array of creatures here. Let's look at another one. Creatures that live in seawater have waited for the tide pool to fill. What's hiding in these shells? We could predict. We could have the students guess. I think that's always a good skill, is to have them do a little predicting. Let me turn the page and I'll shine the light. Okay. We see more shells down there, but they look like they're open up. Bubble, bubble, mussels keep their blue shells tightly shut while the tide is out. Now they open their shells and begin to feed. So you get the idea. I think this is a lot of fun. Let me just show you a couple more pages so you can see some of the other animals. This is one of my favorites. We can sort of see little shadows or highlights there. We know there's a critter under the sand, and we're going to try to guess what that is. And when we shine the light, we see that it's an octopus down there. And there he is. This book also has back matter. Even though it's for the very young, it has some of the nice features. We have a sort of an encyclopedia or a dictionary of the animals that we've met in this book. A little bit more about them. And then back to our lovely end papers that suggest water. I think kids will really like this book, and if they do, and you have a little extra money in your budget, you might want to go and buy Secrets of the Apple Tree. It's the same idea. It's a shine-a-light book, and I have a feeling there will be more of these as they start to investigate different habitats. I almost think it might even be a project for older students to figure out how to make a book like this. I like the idea of the shining the light and having the hidden picture to predict about. Well, that's all I have to share with you today. I'm looking forward to 2015. I can't wait to see what some of the award winners are at ALA at the end of the month. And I will be back next month with some more books to share. Thank you.